23 minutes past 8 a.m. I'm Arnold Sagawa. You're watching Morning at 10 TV. Just a few months ago, more than 6 months ago to be precise, schools were closed, of course, in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. But we got some reprieve today with the word that there will not be any stagnation when it comes to the next education year. That's, of course, 2021 as the word is in Uganda. Everyone will be promoted. To help us understand the technicalities of the education space and what the COVID-19 pandemic has meant for all the players, not just the students. We do have some policy people, some stakeholders. To my left, I do have John Mugisha, who's the coordinator of Children Helpline, Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. Right next to him, we do have a student, actually, Nuriat Nabakoza Abdul, who is Nuriat Nabakoza, who is at Abdul Karim Sentamu Primary School. And to my extreme left, we do have Rosette Nanyanzi, who's with the gender unit at the Ministry of Education. Ladies and the gentlemen, thanks for making time to speak to us today.
Thank you for having us.
Let me start with you, Nuriat. How bad has the situation been? And I think I should start with, have you gotten any access to the education material that was promised by the ministry?
I have got my equipment for school to learn by getting past e-papers from my friends and getting like past e-papers from school because some of my uncles stay at school. Right.
But these were not the ones that are being distributed by the Ministry of Education. They were strictly the ones from the school. Right. Rosette, let me bring you in. There was talk of distribution of radios. It's really been a tough time, if we're to be honest. How have you coped to make sure that this reaches the last mile, at least as the ministry? I would understand that the logistics of distributing some of this reading material is just immense.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, we have to appreciate that COVID took us by surprise. The modality that we've been using to learn was turned over upside down. And as a sector, we had to think very fast on ensuring that our children continue learning amidst the challenges that we are going through as a sector, but also the whole world was going through. So the first thing we had is to make sure that our learners at least receive reading materials. We do appreciate that the first batch of the materials that we are sent, the way they were distributed was actually not convenient for all the learners. We note that there were those children that were in very challenging situations that were not able to receive these reading materials. But along the way, we kept on learning. That is why we introduced learning on radio, we introduced learning on TV, so that it's not only the materials that we are distributing, but we are also using other venues to make sure that our children continue learning. We didn't want them to be at home and completely be doing nothing. So it was challenging at first. For example, we didn't have resources for children with special needs. And we realized along the way that we needed to come up with something of that sort. So it has not been easy, but I think we are coping along the way.
Right. John, police released a scary figure, which was 6,000 underage children. I want to call them children because they are underage, and many of these had actually been defiled during this particular time of COVID-19. How is your docket dealing with this? Because 6,000 is in such a small window, just shows you how terrible the situation is if someone has so much time to their hands.
That's true, Arnold, that's true. But one thing you need to understand, the 6,000 are just those that managed to report. We also have those that have not reported at all. We have those that we shall get in the months to come. And as a ministry, Ministry of Gender is the ministry that is responsible for children in this country. And being a Ministry of Gender, we have a child helpline, which is a toll-free number for reporting violence against children. This helpline has been operational even during the period of COVID. We had also some setbacks, like Rosette said. COVID took us by storm, and we had some challenges in operation. But after that, after like 2 weeks, we were able to pick up. And we have seen people calling on various issues. The challenge that we see in the cases that are coming up, sometimes these cases come up because people have failed, maybe say, to agree. People are not necessarily reporting for the basis of getting a service or assistance, but to kind of see what they can benefit from the situation. So for us, we look beyond the numbers. We look at every single of those 6,000 as an individual child who has actually been violated. All these are girls. And as the helpline, we have seen the cases also rising up, the same way the police is doing so. So it is something that needs a lot of coordination in terms of the structures that are in place, set up by government at the local level, from the district probation officers to the police officers that are at the district level, to those officers that are at the sub-county. You've heard the president talk about the community development officers. We have these officers at these various levels who can help us channel these cases towards the police for assistance. But if we look at these cases just from the police angle, we miss the point. We have to look at this as a holistic thing. That's why we are taking the multi-sectoral approach. That's why you'll find us work with Ministry of Education, that these girls who have been violated, how can they be able to go back to school? You know, we're working with Ministry of Health. How can these girls get the medical assistance they need to prevent even further damage? We're working with other ministries so that we see that we were able to bring something that's holistic to this child. So it is beyond just Ministry of Gender. It is a whole kind of system for the whole government to respond to.
Yes. I see what you mean. It has to be a quite holistic approach, not just one issue. Nuriat, if we're to go back to the issue of you being away from school for such a long time, the notion of studying, I've never even tried this, let's say studying on radio or waiting for a few papers to come your way in the newspaper, that's if someone can even access the newspaper. How challenging is that, given the fact that before this COVID-19 pandemic, that you had face-to-face interaction with your teachers? How challenging is it for you to just overnight have to move to a different means of studying?
Sorry.
How challenging is it that overnight you just had to move from, let's say, having a teacher, now you have to actually deal with relying on past papers or the radio? Is that a big challenge?
No.
Right. Okay. Rosette, maybe you could just elaborate some more on this. Have you got some reports on some students just struggling to morph overnight?
Of course, many of our children are struggling. One, because like she has already said, that the materials were not coming on time. That is one of the challenges. But also when we got into the lockdown, some parents decided to use the children to do other things. When you move on the streets of Kampala, for example, you find very many children selling maize right from 7 in the morning up to evening. So such children, I don't think, get time to even look at their books, to even revise. So that is also challenging. But also we have challenges with the form itself. If the family is not supportive to this learner, even when you send the materials, you may find that the children may not be able to read simply because the family is not supportive. In some instances, the children need to be encouraged. You may be illiterate, but you're being there to support, to encourage the child to listen in, to do their work, to revise is very important. But you find that most of the parents are not doing that. And for us, we see that as a very big, that is why we say the presence of a teacher is important in the child's life, because some parents are not used to that. And then the other challenge is there is a lot of diversion in our homes. You find that when children were at school, they would be safe and they would be following a particular program. At home, the father has quarreled with the mother. That the next thing, they don't expect children to do what? To read. They are emotionally affected. So even when we have materials coming in, that child may not be able to learn. All these are issues that we are grappling with as a sector, and I think, like John has said, we need to work together. This season has challenged all of us, but as a government and as partners and as Uganda, we need to see how we support each other. That is why we've been encouraging our teachers who are close to their learners to at least move in and see how their children are progressing.
I see, I see. Well, the biggest issue for me is the fact that even the teachers are grappling. We've run some stories here where some had to resort to making bricks or selling sugar canes. They're also struggling. So, but I understand where you're coming from. I definitely, and I respect that. John, Rosette touched an issue of COVID comes in, and then suddenly some parents now resort to using their children as labor. You know, I mean, you help out, you're not studying. How much of an issue is this, at least in your docket, Ministry for Gender Labor? Are you actually sensitizing Ugandans that this is a violation of certain accords that we subscribe to?
Yeah, we are doing a lot of sensitizations, not just as a ministry, but up to...
Regarding child labor?
Yes, regarding child labor. The different kind of mechanisms that have been in place, even regards to implementations of the laws that are in place in regards to issues of child labor. But the challenge we always get with the Ugandan public is the interpretation of some of these issues. What would you term as child labor? For example, if a child is told to do domestic work at home, to help out at home, another person may take it that this child has been violated. It depends on the workload, basing on the child's age. So even the children helping out, learning a few things here and there, doesn't hurt. But where it becomes extreme, you put this child in dangerous, hazardous conditions that would lead to their loss of life or damage or injury of any sort, then that becomes issues of child labor. And we have made it a point, even as the helpline, we are receiving on the toll-free number 116, we're receiving a lot of calls in regards to this. We're seeing children on the street, like Rosette said, selling maize. We have seen some are placed somewhere to sell fruits. You know, they come next to the windows. Some of these kids are supposed to actually be wearing masks as directed by the government, but they are not doing so. So there are a lot of these challenges in interpretation of what is supposed to be done. So for us as a ministry, we're creating that awareness through the media. Even right now, I'm actually telling the public we should actually avoid it. Let us use safer methods in order to engage our children and learn from them, because even the children know what they're supposed to be doing.
John, thanks for that. Let's take a quick break. We'll be continuing with Morning at 10 TV just right after this.
Global Rights Alert, in partnership with the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, Accord, Action Aid, and Uganda Association of Artisanal and Small-Scale Miners, has organized the 4th Annual Citizens Convention on Mining. Running under the theme Sustainable Development of Mineral Wealth in East Africa, the convention shall 1. Provide a platform for learning and information sharing amongst actors in the mineral subsector in East Africa. 2. Create a platform for citizens to deliberate on the issues affecting the mining subsector and shape the sector's governance framework. 3. Promote accountability and transparency by enabling stakeholders to take stock of progress and achievements within the sector over the last 5 years. The convention will take place on the 24th September 2020 and will be opened by the State Minister for Mineral Development, Honorable Sarah Upendi. Other speakers to expect: Mr. Francis Mujenyi, Senior Industry Advisor at the African Union Commission and founder of Minerals Africa Development Institution; Ms. Agnes Alaba, Commissioner of Mines, Directorate of Geological Survey and Mines, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development; Winifred Ngabirwe, Executive Director, Global Rights Alert. The event is supported by Democratic Governance Facility, Voice and Fund for Global Human Rights. For more information, check Global Rights Alert website www.globalrightsalert.org or the social media pages on Facebook and Twitter. The hashtag for the event is CCM_UG 2020.
watching Morning at NTV.
22 minutes to 9 a.m. I'm Arnold Sagawai watching Morning at NTV. Joining me today is to my left. It's actually a conversation about the issues around education, the education sector, vis-a-vis the COVID-19 pandemic. To my left, we do have John Mugisha, who is a coordinator for the Child Helpline at the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. Right next to John, we do have Vivian Mutoni, who is with Winston Standard Najana Nkumbi, and to my extreme left, Ms. Rosette Nanyanzi, who is with the Gender Unit at the Ministry of Education. Vivian, let me just bring you into the conversation here. Earlier on, we were talking to Nuriat, and we just touched on a few things that a few challenges, you know, vis-a-vis the reading material arriving on time, how she's coping. Give me a sense of what you would expect the government, well, let's start with the Ministry of Education, what they could do to make sure that you're back on track in the fastest time possible.
I think the government should put more enforcement, like for boys. For us, we are girls. There are girls who go in periods. You find girls going periods use bed sheets.
Right.
And instead of the government giving us pads, you find a girl dirty, and even some girls get scared. Because, you know, the boys, if you go in periods the first time, you can find boys laugh, do what. But if the government puts their governments and put more enforcement on female senior teachers, I think we are going to go back on track. Because some of girls go scared, some are pregnant, some are already married because of those things, fearing to go back to school because of periods. Schools do.
Right. No, please finish up.
Yeah, schools do not have that time. Even if you go and tell the teacher, she tells you, I don't have money. And you can find some girls crying, not going back to school because of that things.
I'm glad that we do have someone from the ministry, Rosette. There have been a few campaigns, some handled by the private sector, to have universal sanitary pads maybe distributed maybe once a month, maybe twice. I don't know. But as the ministry, when you hear those words coming from Vivian, where does that leave you?
I think the challenge, there is a misconception about this whole issue of menstruation management. People, when we talk about menstruation management, the first thing they go to is the sanitary pad. And for me, I think I want to look at more holistically. It is not only the sanitary pads. Girls who first of all need information on what is happening to them and how to manage this challenge that they are going through. That is the most important thing. Then two, we have to make sure that the environment is conducive. The schools should have water. They should have facilities to dispose of these sanitary pads, because we don't want that embarrassment. Imagine you're dumping a pad where they are seeing it. That would cause also embarrassment, and it can lead to dropout. So those things are supposed to be there. And then we talk about the sanitary pads. So the sanitary pad is just a small component. And what have we been doing as Ministry of Education? This is an issue we've been working with since 2012. We developed readers on understanding and managing menstruation for young girls to be able to read for themselves and understand. Besides that, we built the capacity of our teachers to be able to talk about menstruation to these girls, so that the girls know what they are going through, but equally the boys can appreciate.
That's what I was also going to say. It shouldn't just be the girls when we're talking about this issue, because, you know, at that age you're also oblivious to what she's going through, and until you appreciate.
Yes. So what we've been doing is we train our children, the boys and girls, and for us as Ministry of Education, we believe that menstruation is everyone's business. So everyone should get involved, boys and girls. All teachers, senior women and senior men should be involved. From that, we sent out a circular to all schools and institutions, stipulating what some of the things that should be put in place for the proper management of menstruation. And we emphasized that schools should have emergency sanitary pads. Emergency sanitary pads. Because we know that not all times girls are prepared. So when you come to school, you can always go to your senior woman to get an emergency. And then when you go back home, the parents should be able to provide. But also we have empowered our children with the skills of making their own reusable pads. I wouldn't want our children to use bed sheets the way they are. They need to have that skill. Because between you and me, this is not something that is beginning today. Even my grandmother menstruated. So what is it that she used in the 19th century that we can be able to improve on in this 21st century? And those are the skills that we are imparting to our young girls and boys. Because boys also have sisters and they should be supportive. As a sector, we have gone ahead to make sure that the learning environment is actually conducive. When you look at our new infrastructure, we have taken care of the changing rooms, we have taken care of the water, because these are the basics that we need. And then issues of disposing of, these are being taken care of. So what we are saying, that as we are going back to the schools, our teachers should make sure that the schools have emergencies, that there is water. Water is really critical for the management of menstruation. We have also realized that our senior women and men teachers didn't have enough information concerning their roles and responsibilities. And as a sector, we have gone ahead during this period of COVID to develop guidelines for them on their implementation of their roles and responsibilities. That means they will be able to talk about issues of growth and sexual maturation. They will be able to talk about violence against children. They will be able to talk about life skills as a way of supporting these children not to drop out of school.
Thanks for that, Rosette. We're actually running out of time. John, let me bring you in. Your ministry, what are you doing as the schools are actually opening?
Yeah. I think our focus right now is increasing access for the children to be able to report any form of violation that could befall them, whether on their way to school or when they're at school. And that's why as the ministry, we have ensured that the helpline is not just a place that you can just use in terms of using a phone and calling 116, but also the districts having access to the system. They have accounts. So in case a case is reported to us in real time, it will reach the district very fast, and also response will be made very fast. But also today, the ministry will be launching the Safe PAL app. We're trying to increase avenues for children to be able to report. And so this one also has information which will be uploaded by Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture, different aspects on issues that relate to the young people. HIV, AIDS, issues of education, issues of starting up businesses, different things. The other thing that we're trying to do and emphasize on is child justice. As a ministry, we are part of the JLO sector. So we are fronting issues of justice for children, and we're ensuring as a ministry that our different institutions are actually responding to that. And then finally, lastly, we are also doing an integration. We have a lot of information management systems. As you have understood in COVID, we have realized that technology is the key, and we have to go now. We have to upgrade ourselves to that level. And so the ministry has a lot of information management systems, which we're now trying to interlink or connect together so that we have a holistic picture of what is happening in the lives of the children in this nation.
John, thanks for that. Before I let all of you go, I think it's only fair that Vivian has the last word.
Yeah.
Vivian, if you were the president right now, what would you do different?
I would distribute pads free, because now in this COVID-19 pandemic, pads are expensive than they were. They are 3,000, and the last time they were 2,500. And you can find a mother cannot let to eat to buy a pad. It can't. And sometimes if you use a bed sheet, you can walk and it can, show. And you can people start laughing at you. That's why some guys you can see them marrying at a young age, at a young time, because of embarrassment. I want to show that I went in periods and I went to marry.
Right.
You can find many girls pregnant because of that.
Vivian, thanks for your very candid words, and I'm sure the president heard that. I mean, he watches this station all the time. Thank you for that. John Mugisha, who is the coordinator of the Child Helpline at the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. Right next to him, we do have Vivian Mutoni, who is with the Winston Standard in Najanankumbi. And to my extreme left, Ms. Rosette Nanyanzi, who is with the Gender Unit at the Ministry of Education. That's where we'll leave it for this edition of Morning at NTV. Arnold Sagawa is my name. I'll be back at 1 p.m. With the NTV at 1. For now, though, Farida Nakazibwe is just getting her clothes in order and her shoes with Mwasuzo Mutia. For me, have a good morning.